Chapter 1. The Offering's Echo. The forest had no mercy for those who ran from their past. Alara stumbled over exposed roots, her breath tearing through her chest in ragged gasps. Behind her, voices echoed through the darkness, the village elders, their torches turning the autumn woods into a labyrinth of dancing shadows. They'd finally decided, after 17 years of uneasy peace, they wanted to complete the transaction she'd interrupted as a child. She bears the mark, the head elder's voice carried through the trees. The compact demands fulfillment. Her hand flew instinctively to her throat, where the silver scar curved like a crescent moon. The mark of an offering interrupted. The night she'd knelt in the village square at age 7, baring her small neck to the darkness, whispering the words her grandmother had taught her. "Take my blood, spare my people." But the vampire who'd emerged from the shadows hadn't taken. He'd marked her instead, his claw drawing one precise line, then vanished with a single command: grow strong. 10 years later, her grandmother's dying confession had shattered everything. The village elders had planned to use Ilara's sacrifice to forge a darker pact, one that would bind the vampire lord to perpetual service. Her interrupted offering had ruined their scheme, leaving them with neither protection nor power. Now they hunted her to finish what they'd started. Ilara burst through a wall of blackthorn, thorns shredding her cloak, and stopped. The forest ended at a cliff's edge. Below, a valley stretched in moonlit silver, and rising from its heart like a crown of bones stood a manor, all Gothic spires and shattered windows, beautiful in its desolation. Nowhere left to run. "Girl!" The elder emerged behind her, 4 men flanking him with iron chains. "You'll honor the compact. Your blood, his servitude. The village needs protection from the Volkov house. I won't be your sacrificial lamb twice." Ilara's voice shook, but she stepped backward, heels at the cliff's edge. "Better the fall than their altar." Dramatic. The new voice came from everywhere and nowhere, a dark velvet sound that raised every hair on her neck, but unnecessary. He materialized between her and the elders like smoke given form. Tall, impossibly so, wrapped in a coat that had seen centuries. His hair fell silver white to his shoulders, framing a face too perfect to be anything but predatory. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Ancient gold, fixed on her throat where the scar gleamed. "Lord Constantine." The elder dropped to his knees. "The girl is yours. The compact was fulfilled the moment I marked her." Constantine's voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through the ground. "You offered a child's blood to save your pathetic village. I took her choice instead, a far rarer gift. The deal was complete 17 years ago. But the Volkov attacks are your concern, not mine. I owed you nothing beyond that single night's mercy." He turned slightly, and Ilara saw his profile against the moon, sharp enough to cut. "However, the girl may bargain for herself now. She's of age." The elder's face purpled. She has her consent." Constantine's gaze found Ilara's, and something passed between them, a recognition that made her scar burn cold. "Which I will not take by force." Unlike some, understanding crashed through her. He'd marked her not to claim her, but to protect her. A child offered up by adults who should have defended her. The deal hadn't been broken. It had been subverted. He'd given her 17 years to become something other than a sacrifice. "Come, Ilara." He extended one pale hand, and she saw his fingers bore similar scars, countless marks from countless interrupted offerings. "You need not fear me. You never did. That was the point." She looked at the elders, then at the vampire who'd shaped her life from a distance. Behind Constantine, the ruined manor waited like a promise, a place outside the village's reach, outside anyone's reach. Ilara took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, cool, gentle, and utterly inhuman. The elders shouted protests, but Constantine moved, and suddenly they were falling, the cliff rushing past in a blur of stone and starlight. He landed with her cradled against his chest in the valley below, silent as death itself. "Welcome," he murmured, already walking toward the manor. "To the only sanctuary I can offer. It comes with considerable danger. From you?" She had to know. His smile was sad and strange. "From those who'll want what I gave you back." Chapter 2. The Manor's Testimony. The Manor devoured them whole. Alara had expected dust and decay, but Constantine's sanctuary defied abandonment. Candles ignited as they passed through the great hall. Hundreds of them, their flames reflected in mirrors that climbed 3 stories to a vaulted ceiling painted with faded frescoes. Angels and demons entwined in eternal battle, their faces worn to ghosts. "How long have you lived here?" She pulled free from his arms, needing distance, needing to understand the creature who'd claimed her childhood with a single merciful scar. 243 years in this particular tomb. Constantine shrugged off his coat, revealing a white shirt that belonged to some previous century. Give or take a decade. Time becomes fluid after the first 100. He moved through the space like water, lighting a fire in a hearth large enough to stand in. Orange light painted his features in sharp relief, and Alara caught details she'd missed in the forest. The unnatural stillness between his movements, the way he never quite blinked, the absence of breath lifting his chest. Proof. He wasn't hiding what he was. "You're staring." Amusement flickered across his face. "Ask. Do you need to feed?" The words emerged blunt, practical. If she was staying even one night, she needed to know the rules. Yes. He settled into a chair with inhuman grace. "But not from you and not without consent. The mark I gave you isn't a claim. It's a ward. No vampire can take your blood by force while it remains. You're possibly the safest human in the realm." Alara's hand rose to her throat. "Why would you do that?" "Because 7-year-old girls shouldn't be offered like wine to monsters." His voice went cold. "Your elders disgust me. They always have. I've made arrangements with a house in the city. Volunteers who enjoy the exchange. I haven't hunted in a century," she believed him. Something in the weary way he spoke of feeding suggested a creature tired of taking. She explored the room, running fingers over book spines in 6 languages, pausing at a painting of a woman in medieval dress. The resemblance to Constantine was striking. Same sharp features, same gold eyes. "My sister." He'd appeared beside her, silent as shadow. "Irina. She chose mortality over eternity. Died at 37, happy. You miss her. Every single day for 200 years. He touched the frame with something like reverence. "She told me I'd regret immortality." She was right. Before Alara could respond, the windows exploded. Glass showered the room in a glittering storm. Constantine moved, faster than sight, pulling her behind him as 3 figures crashed through the destroyed frames. Vampires. She knew it instantly from their predatory grace. Their eyes catching the firelight like cats. Constantine the Merciful. The lead vampire, a woman in modern leather, smiled with too many teeth. "Still playing saint? The Volkov house sends regards. Tatiana." His voice dropped to a lethal purr. "You violate sanctuary. Leave. Now." "We're not here for you, old man." Tatiana's gaze found Alara, and hunger flashed across her face. Not for blood, but for something deeper. "We're here for the marked one. The girl who broke a compact and destabilized the territorial balance. Do you know what her unfinished offering has done? 3 villages fell to rogue vampires last winter. Protection pacts dissolved. All because you decided to play hero." Ice flooded Alara's veins. "What?" "Your interrupted sacrifice created a loophole," Tatiana continued, circling like a shark. "If a village's offering is refused, the vampire lord owes them nothing. But if it's incomplete, the debt remains unpaid, the protection undefined. Every vampire in the territory has been fighting over the scraps." "It's chaos!" Constantine shifted, blocking Tatiana's view of Alara entirely. "The girl is under my protection. Touch her and I invoke the blood accords. You wouldn't dare. You're 1 vampire against the entire Volkov house. Try me." The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across the walls, the mirrors, Tatiana's confident smile. Power radiated from Constantine like radiation. Ancient, absolute, and utterly terrifying. Alara understood in that moment why the elders had wanted him bound to their service. He wasn't just a vampire. He was a force of nature barely contained in flesh. Tatiana retreated 1 step, then another. "House Volkov demands restitution. The girl completes her offering, or we take her bloodline as payment. You have 3 days to decide, Constantine. Sanctuary, or her life." They vanished through the broken windows, leaving only wind and shattered glass. Alara's legs gave out. She sank onto the chair Constantine had vacated, mind reeling. I caused that? The attacks, the deaths? No. He knelt before her, and for the first time she saw genuine anger in his eyes. The elders caused it when they tried to twist a child's sacrifice into slavery. I caused it when I thought marking you would be enough to protect you. This is old sins coming due. Not your fault. But people died. People always die in our world. He stood, pacing now, agitation breaking through his controlled facade. The question is what happens next. I can fight the Volkov house, but not forever. They want you dead or bound. I won't allow either. Then what do we do? He stopped, turning to face her fully. We find out what makes you so valuable that they'd risk war. Your mark is unique, Alara. A refused offering that still holds power. There's something about your blood, your sacrifice, that they fear. Outside, storm clouds gathered. Thunder rolled across the valley like a promise. Rest tonight, Constantine said quietly. Tomorrow I teach you what you need to survive in a world that wants to devour you. And if I can't be taught, his smile was sharp and sad, then we both die beautifully. Chapter 3. The Price of Truth. Morning revealed the manor's true face. Alara woke in a bedroom that belonged to some lost princess. 4-poster bed draped in moth-eaten velvet. Walls papered in faded roses. Sunlight streamed through repaired windows. When had he fixed them? And the scent of coffee drifted from below. Coffee. The vampire brewed coffee. She found him in the library, surrounded by books that looked older than countries. He stood at the window, one hand pressed against the glass, staring at the sunrise with something like longing. You can't go out. She understood suddenly. Daylight. One of the few legends that's accurate. He didn't turn. Sunlight won't kill me, but it's unpleasant, like burning from the inside. I sleep through dawn most days. He gestured to a table set with human breakfast. Bread, cheese, fruit. Eat. We have work to do. Alara sat, studying him in the golden light. He looked more human now somehow, vulnerable in his stillness. How does it work? Becoming what you are? Direct, aren't we? But he smiled. Exchange of blood 3 times over 3 nights. The third exchange stops the heart. Then comes the hunger and the choice. Feed and complete the transformation or die permanently. Most choose feeding. Your sister didn't. Irina refused the third exchange. Said she'd rather burn out than fade forever. He finally turned from the window, shadows under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. I honored her choice. It's all we have in the end, choices. Why I couldn't stomach yours being stolen. Before she could respond, the air pressure changed. Constantine's head snapped toward the door, body going predator still. They're early, he murmured. Stay behind me. The front entrance exploded inward. This time it wasn't 3 vampires. It was 10, led by a man whose presence filled the room like ice water. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit worth more than Alara's village. His eyes were black voids, and power rolled off him in waves that made her teeth ache. Dmitri. Constantine's voice held centuries of hatred. You dare breach my sanctuary in daylight? Desperate times. Dmitri Volkov smiled, all charm and venom. Your little pet has become a territorial crisis. The council has issued a decree. She completes her offering to you within the hour, binding you to her village's protection permanently. Or we execute her for destabilizing the peace. The council has no authority over... The council has every authority when villages burn. Dmitri's voice cracked like thunder. 17 settlements lost protection because of her interrupted sacrifice. Rogue vampires are turning humans without permission. It's anarchy. You'll accept the binding, or she dies and restores the balance through blood debt. Alara stood, stepping around Constantine despite his warning growl. What exactly would this binding do? Smart girl. Dmitri's gaze raked over her. A completed offering creates a covenant. Your blood, freely given in ritual, chains the vampire to your village's protection. They must defend it, cannot harm its citizens, and are bound to its territory. It's slavery, essentially wrapped in tradition. Which is why I refused, Constantine snarled. But here's the beautiful irony. Dmitri circled closer. Your mark already created a partial bond. You owe her village something, Constantine. Not full servitude, but a debt. The council simply wants it defined and closed. Complete the offering, accept the binding, and the chaos ends. Everyone wins. Except him. Alara looked at Constantine, seeing the truth in his rigid posture. He'd be a prisoner. For protecting you? Yes, Dmitri shrugged. Poetic, really. The merciful vampire. Enslaved by mercy. There's another way. The voice came from the back of the room. An elderly vampire woman, white-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing council robes. The girl could become one of us. A vampire cannot be bound by human offering rituals. Her transformation would void the incomplete covenant, restore balance, and free Constantine from debt. Silence crashed through the room. You'd turn her to save me? Constantine's voice was barely audible. I'd offer her the choice. The councilwoman stepped forward. Miss Alara, I'm Magistrate Yevgenia. I've studied your case. Your blood carries something rare, an echo of refused sacrifice that resonates with old magic. If you transformed, that echo would amplify. You'd be powerful, possibly powerful enough to challenge House Volkov's territorial claims yourself, Dmitri hissed. The council wouldn't dare. The council dares much when stability is threatened. Yevgenia's smile was cold. 3 options, girl. Bind Constantine through completed offering, making him a slave. Die and pay the blood debt with your last breath. Or transform and become powerful enough to protect yourself. Alara's mind raced. Every option was a cage. But one cage had Constantine inside it, suffering for her sake. She couldn't... No! Constantine moved between them like lightning. She doesn't choose under duress. I'll accept the binding. Constantine, I've lived 200 years free. Alara, I can survive servitude if it means you survive at all. How noble. Dmitri produced a ritual knife, silver and ancient. Shall we begin? 1 completed offering, 1 enslaved vampire lord, and peace restored. The blade gleamed in the morning light. Outside, storm clouds built again, the sky responding to the tension building in the room. Alara looked at Constantine's resigned face, at the council's expectant expressions, at Dmitri's triumph. She thought of a 7-year-old girl kneeling in a village square, offering everything to save everyone. She thought of the vampire who'd refused to take and stolen nothing. Wait, she said. I have a counteroffer. Chapter 4. Siege of Shadows. I'll complete the offering, Alara said, voice steady despite the terror clawing her throat. But not to bind him. To free him, Dmitri laughed. That's not how the ritual works, girl, isn't it? She turned to Yevgenia. The offering requires my blood, freely given, and my words defining the covenant. Nowhere does it say I must demand servitude. What if I offered my blood and asked for nothing in return? The magistrate's eyes widened fractionally. That's... Theoretically, the covenant would fulfill itself with no terms. The debt would be paid and dissolved simultaneously. Absolutely not. Dmitri moved faster than human sight, suddenly gripping Alara's arm hard enough to bruise. The council demands... Constantine exploded. One moment, Dmitri held her. The next, he was across the room, embedded in the wall with Constantine's hand around his throat. The other vampires moved, but Yevgenia raised one hand, freezing them in place with obvious authority. You touch her again, Constantine whispered, and I'll show you why they called me the Impaler before I learned mercy. Enough. Yevgenia's voice rang with power. The girl's solution is legally sound. An offering with no demands dissolves the debt without creating bondage. Dmitri, release your claim or face council sanctions for assault. House Volkov will not. House Volkov will accept the council's ruling. Yevgenia's gaze could have cut glass, or I'll investigate exactly how 17 villages lost protection. Someone's been encouraging rogue attacks to force this confrontation. I wonder who. Dmitri's face went blank. Then he smiled, cold and terrible. Fine, let her make her toothless offering. But House Volkov will remember this insult, Constantine. Will remember how you chose a human girl over territorial peace. He vanished. Not through the door, but simply ceasing to exist in one place and appearing outside, his entourage following. Through the broken wall, Alara watched them retreat across the valley like shadows fleeing dawn. That, Yevgenia said quietly, was exceptionally foolish, child. You've made an enemy of the most ruthless house in the territory. She saved me from slavery. Constantine released the wall, leaving a crater. That's worth any enemy. Perhaps. The magistrate studied Alara with new interest. But Dmitri doesn't forgive. He'll find another way to use you. Be careful what you offer, and to whom. She nodded once, then dissolved into mist, leaving through the shattered wall. Silence fell like snow. You didn't have to do that. Constantine's voice was rough. I would have accepted the binding. I know. Alara's hands were shaking now, adrenaline draining. But you gave me a choice 17 years ago. I won't take yours now. He moved toward her slowly, as if approaching something fragile. You understand what you've done? Dmitri won't stop. He wants control over this territory, and I'm the last independent lord standing in his way. Through me, or through you, he'll find his leverage. Then we don't give him any. She met his ancient eyes. You teach me to survive this world. I'll complete the offering to free you from debt. And together, we find out why my blood matters so much. Together. He said the word like a prayer. I haven't had together in a very long time. Before she could respond, the windows exploded again. But this time, it wasn't vampires. It was fire, great gouts of flame that turned the library into an inferno within seconds. Alara screamed, stumbling backward as books ignited, as the ancient tapestries became curtains of fire. Through the smoke she saw them. Humans, the village elders, wielding torches and holy water, burn out the vampire. The head elder's voice carried over the roar. Burn them both! Constantine grabbed her, pulling her low beneath the smoke. The catacombs. There's a tunnel system. Can you run? Yes. A burning beam collapsed, separating them. Flames leaped between. And through the fire, Alara saw Constantine's face contort with pain. The heat. He'd said sunlight burned him from within. Fire must be agony. But he was pushing through, reaching for her. An elder appeared from the smoke, swinging an iron poker at Constantine's head. Alara moved without thinking. She grabbed a fallen candlestick, heavy, silver, and brought it crashing into the elder's skull. He dropped. She'd never hit anyone before. Her hands went numb. Good. Constantine's voice, choked with smoke. Again, if you must. Follow me. They ran through the burning manor, Constantine leading her through servant passages that twisted like intestines. Behind them, the elders' voices rose in religious chants, calling down holy judgment on the vampire and his whore. The smoke thickened, turned black. Alara's lungs screamed. Then they were falling. Constantine had found a trapdoor, and they tumbled into cool darkness, landing hard on stone. Above, the fire raged, but below, in the catacombs beneath the manor, silence and stone walls held the inferno at bay. Are you hurt? Constantine's hands were on her face, her shoulders checking for burns. His palms were charred, blackened from pushing through the flames. Your hands will heal. He pulled her deeper into the tunnel, where water dripped and centuries of dust muffled their footsteps. Vampire resilience, but we need to dress them, or the burns will slow regeneration. Do you know anything about field medicine? My grandmother was a healer. Alara's voice came out steadier than she felt. I assisted her for years. I can help if you have supplies. There's a safe room ahead. Irina insisted I maintain one back when she was alive. Said I'd need it someday. His laugh was bitter. She was always right. They walked in silence, the burning manor fading behind them. Somewhere above, her past was turning to ash. Somewhere ahead, in the darkness, something new was beginning. Constantine's burned hand found hers, squeezed once, gently. Thank you, he whispered, for the choice. Chapter 5. Wounds and Truths. The safe room was a time capsule, preserved behind a door that required Constantine's blood to open. It held furniture from another century. A bed with embroidered linens, Shelves stocked with candles and preserved food, medical supplies in glass jars. A portrait hung on the wall. The same woman from the manor library, Irina, but younger, laughing at something beyond the frame. She prepared this after I was turned. Constantine sank onto the bed, exhaustion cracking his composed facade. Made me promise I'd maintain it. For emergencies, she said. For the nights when being immortal means everyone wants you dead or bound. Ilara found the medical kit, surprisingly complete, with bandages, salves, even instruments. Let me see your hands. He hesitated, then extended them. The burns were horrific, flesh charred black to the bone in places. Any human would have been screaming. He merely sat, watching her face as she examined the damage. How is this possible? She kept her voice clinical, professional, the way grandmother had taught her. You pushed through direct flame. Love makes us stupid. He said it lightly, but his eyes held weight. Or perhaps just desperate. I wasn't letting you burn. She cleaned the wounds with water from a sealed cistern, her hands steady despite the intimacy of the act. This close, she could see details. The way his skin was too perfect where it wasn't burned, like marble. The complete absence of pores, of human imperfection. The stillness of his chest between his scattered breaths. Breathing was performance for her benefit, not necessity. You're not afraid of me, he observed. Most humans recoil. I've been marked by you since childhood. If you wanted to hurt me, you've had 17 years. She applied salve, something herbal that made the burns hiss. He didn't flinch. Besides, you took burns protecting me. That's not monster behavior, isn't it? Vampires are possessive of what they claim. You've claimed nothing. She began wrapping his hands in clean bandages, working with the precision grandmother had drilled into her. That's the point. You gave me a ward, not a collar. Silence fell, comfortable and strange. Above them, the manor still burned. She could feel the heat through the stone. They were trapped here until the fire died and the elders left. Hours, maybe days, in this preserved bubble of the past. Why did you refuse my blood that night? She had to know. When I was 7. You could have taken it, completed the ritual, and had the village's protection to offer. Instead, you marked me and walked away. Constantine's jaw tightened. You want the truth? Always. Because I saw myself. He stood, pacing the small room like a caged wolf. I was turned at 32, violently, without consent. My maker wanted a companion and decided I'd do. She fed me her blood, killed me, and when I woke with the hunger, she brought me a girl, maybe 14, told me to feed or die. Ilara's breath caught. I fed. His voice went flat. I chose existence over morality, and that girl's face has haunted me for 200 years. So when I saw you, this tiny child kneeling in the dirt, offering your throat because adults told you to, I couldn't. I wouldn't be the creature who taught you that powerless sacrifice was virtue. So you marked me instead, made you untouchable by our kind, gave you time to grow into someone who could choose for herself. He turned back to her, and the rawness in his expression made her chest ache. I thought that would be enough, that you'd live your mortal life, and I'd have one choice I didn't regret. But the elders twisted it. Dmitri weaponized it. And now you're here, trapped underground with a monster, because I was selfish enough to want one pure thing in my long, bloody existence. Ilara finished wrapping his second hand, then stood closing the distance between them. You're not a monster. I've killed to feed. I've ended lives. You've also spent 2 centuries trying not to. She placed one hand on his chest, over where his heart no longer beat. My grandmother told me that goodness isn't what we are. It's what we choose, every day, despite what we are. You chose mercy. You keep choosing it. His hand, the one she'd just bandaged, rose to cover hers. And you? What do you choose, Ilara? The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. She was aware of everything suddenly. The coolness of his skin, the way he was looking at her like she was a puzzle he desperately wanted to solve, the fact that they were alone in a room with a bed and hours to fill. I choose to trust you, she said quietly. For now, that's all I can promise. Something flickered in his eyes, relief maybe, or disappointment. For now is more than I deserve. A rumble shook the ceiling. Dust rained down, The fire above was spreading, consuming the manor's bones. They'd be trapped here until it burned itself out, breathing recycled air, waiting in the darkness. "Tell me about Irina," Alara said, moving to the portrait. "If we're stuck here, I want to know the woman who made you promise to survive." And he did. Constantine sat on the bed, and Alara curled into a chair, and through the long hours of their entombment, he painted pictures with words. His human sister, brilliant and fierce, who'd watched him transform and never flinched, who'd refused immortality because she said eternity was for cowards afraid to burn brightly, who'd made him swear he'd find something worth living for beyond mere survival. "Have you?" Alara asked as the ceiling's trembling finally ceased, as silence suggested the fire had died. "Found something worth living for?" Constantine's gaze found hers across the shadowed room. "I'm beginning to think I have." Chapter 6. Blood and Starlight. They emerged at midnight to find the manor gone. Nothing remained but blackened stone bones and ash that glowed like dying stars. The elders had fled, their work complete. 2 centuries of history, reduced to char and memory. Constantine stood at the edge of the ruins, his bandaged hands clenched, and said nothing. But Alara felt his grief like radiation. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Irina's portrait." His voice cracked. It was the last image of her. Now it's ash. Before she could respond, a sound split the night, not human, not quite animal. A howl that made her bones vibrate. Through the smoke-hazed moonlight, figures emerged from the forest. Vampires, but wrong somehow, moving with jerky, animalistic intensity. "Rogues!" Constantine pulled her behind him. Damn it, Dmitri must have sent them. Newly turned, mind still breaking. There were 6, their eyes wild, mouths stained with recent feeding. They circled the ruins like wolves, and Alara understood. This wasn't just an attack. This was a message. "Look what happens when you refuse House Volkov. Can we fight them?" She looked around for weapons. Anything. "I can." He shed his coat, and she saw the predator beneath the gentleman. "You need to run. There's a village 3 miles east. Humans. Find sanctuary." "I won't leave you." Alara, the rogues struck. They moved as a pack. Inhumanly fast, crashing into Constantine with enough force to shatter stone. He fought like liquid death, all grace and violence, tearing into them with hands that were still healing. But he was 1 against 6, and they felt no pain, no fear. One slipped past him, lunging for Alara with a child's face twisted into a monster's snarl. She grabbed a piece of debris, a iron candlestick, half melted, and swung. It connected with the rogue's skull, and the vampire stumbled, not hurt but surprised. That hesitation cost it. Constantine was there, moving like lightning, breaking its neck with a sound like snapping branches. "Behind you," Alara screamed. 2 rogues had flanked him. Constantine spun, but one caught his shoulder, fangs sinking deep. He roared. The sound was ancient and terrible, and ripped the vampire off, taking a chunk of his own flesh with it. Blood sprayed, black in the moonlight. Alara's mind raced. 6 vampires, 1 wounded Constantine and her. They needed an advantage. She scanned the ruins, looking for anything useful, and her eyes caught on something. The remains of Irina's portrait. The frame still partially intact. Covered in silver leaf, silver. The frame was silver. She ran for it, dodging a rogue's grab, and tore the frame apart. Pieces of silver came away in her hands, sharp, jagged. Not much, but enough. She sprinted back to where Constantine was grappling with 3 rogues at once, his bandaged hands leaving blood trails. "Catch." She threw him a piece of silver. He snatched it from the air, understanding instantly. Silver couldn't kill vampires, that was myth, but it burned them, slowed healing. He drove it into the nearest rogue's eye, and the creature shrieked, stumbling back. Alara kept throwing pieces, and Constantine kept using them, fighting with a precision that spoke of centuries of survival. But it wasn't enough. They were overwhelming him through sheer numbers, dragging him down. One rogue broke free of the melee and charged Alara, its young face, a girl, maybe 16 before she was turned, twisted with hunger. Alara didn't think. She grabbed the last piece of silver, the sharpest shard, and slashed her own palm open. Blood welled, bright red, and the scent of it stopped every vampire mid-motion. That's right, she said, holding up her bleeding hand, the crescent scar on her throat gleaming. I'm the marked one. Refused sacrifice. My blood is what you're all fighting over. Want it? Come take it. The rogues turned from retry H continue Constantine as one, drawn to her like moths to flame. But they didn't attack. They stopped, confusion warring with hunger on their broken faces. What are you doing? Constantine's voice was raw with panic. Watch. Alara kept her bleeding hand raised, feeling instinct guide her. The same instinct that had made a 7-year-old girl kneel and offer herself. You can smell it, can't you? My blood. It's different, the girl rogue whimpered, swaying. It calls, sings, but can't. The mark. Understanding crashed through Alara. The ward Constantine had given her. It wasn't just protection from forced feeding. It resonated in her blood itself, making her untouchable. The rogues could smell her, want her, but some primal vampire instinct prevented them from taking without permission. That's right. She stepped forward, and the rogues retreated. You can't touch me. But he can. She gestured to Constantine, still bleeding from the shoulder wound. So here's what's going to happen. You leave now and tell Dimitri that his pets failed, or I let him feed from me, and a vampire who's tasted marked blood becomes very, very hard to kill. She had no idea if that was true, but the rogues didn't know either. The girl rogue hissed, torn between hunger and fear. Finally, she turned and fled into the forest. The others followed, their howls fading into the night. Silence fell. That, Constantine said faintly, was either brilliant or insane. Probably both. Alara's legs gave out. She sat hard on a piece of rubble, adrenaline draining, leaving her shaking. Did I just bluff 6 vampires with mythology? You bluffed them with truth. He crossed to her, examining her bleeding palm with a focus that made her skin prickle. Marked blood does carry power. I didn't know rogues could sense it. You found an advantage I didn't know existed. We found it. She met his eyes. Together. He was still holding her hand, his thumb ghosting over her bleeding palm. The intimacy of it struck her suddenly. Him, cradling her wound like something precious, his face inches from hers in the moonlight. She could see her reflection in his golden eyes. I should bandage this, he murmured, but didn't move. You're still bleeding too. Her free hand rose to his torn shoulder. We're both a mess, Alara. Her name on his lips was a warning and a prayer. If you keep touching me, I'll forget every reason I've spent 17 years keeping distance between us. Maybe I want you to forget. The words hung in the smoke-tinged air. His expression shifted, control cracking, revealing the hunger beneath. Not for blood, she realized. For connection. For something he'd denied himself for 2 centuries of self-imposed loneliness. You don't know what you're asking. His voice dropped to a whisper. I'm a vampire, Alara. I've killed. I've done monstrous things, and once I let myself want you, I won't be able to stop. I'm not asking you to be human. She leaned closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. I'm asking you to be honest. Tell me you don't feel this. He closed his eyes, jaw clenched. I can't, because I do. I've felt it since you took my hand in that forest. Chose my protection over their sacrifice. Maybe longer. Maybe since the night I marked you and wondered what kind of woman you'd become. Then stop fighting it. She kissed him. It was soft at first. A question, not a demand. His lips were cool against hers, and for one terrifying moment he didn't respond. Then his control shattered. His hand slid into her hair, and he kissed her back with 2 centuries of starvation, pulling her against him with a gentleness that belied his strength. Alara's world narrowed to sensation, the coolness of his skin, the way he tasted like winter and smoke, the careful pressure of his hands as if she were made of glass. He kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, him from habit, her from necessity, his eyes had darkened to amber. This is dangerous, he said against her lips. Not because I'll hurt you, because I'll want to keep you, forever. And forever is a very long time. I'm not afraid of forever. She traced the line of his jaw. I'm afraid of safe little lives that mean nothing. I'm afraid of being offered up and never chosen. You've chosen me every day for 17 years. Let me choose you back." He shuddered, pressing his forehead to hers. "If you become what I am, then I become it. On my terms. Not because I'm running, not because I'm forced, because I want to." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "You asked what I choose, Constantine. I choose you. I choose this. Whatever this becomes. Even if it means eternity? Especially if it means eternity with someone who sees me as more than a sacrifice." He kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing her. When he finally pulled away, his expression was raw, with something between joy and terror. "Then I need to teach you what eternity costs," he said quietly. "The hunger, the isolation, the watching everyone you love turn to dust. If you're going to choose this, you need to know all of it, the beauty and the horror. Show me." She stood, pulling him up with her. "We have time. Do we?" He looked at the ruined manor, at the forest where the rogues had fled. "Dmitri won't stop. The council wants resolution. Your village wants revenge. And I have 3 days to decide what to do with you before House Volkov declares war. Then we use 3 days." Alara's voice was steel. "You teach me to survive their world. I complete my offering to free you from debt, and we find out why everyone wants to control something I chose to give you freely." His smile was sharp and beautiful. "You sound like Irina, defiant in the face of impossible odds." "Good." She looked at the ashes of his home, then at the eastern sky where dawn was beginning to break. "Because I'm done being offered. It's time I took what I want. And what do you want?" She kissed him once more, brief and fierce. "A life, a real one. Even if it means becoming a monster to claim it." Chapter 7. The Journey Between Worlds. They walked through the gray hours before dawn, heading east toward the city Constantine claimed held sanctuary. Alara had never left her village's territory before the night she fled. Now she traveled beside a vampire through forests that felt older than time, learning the rules of a world she'd only glimpsed. "The hunger is constant," Constantine explained as they picked their way over a fallen oak. "Not pain exactly. More like a void where satisfaction should be. You'll always be aware of heartbeats, blood flow. It becomes background noise but never truly silent. How do you manage it?" She watched him move through the pre-dawn shadows, graceful, economical, never quite touching the ground too heavily. Discipline, routine. "I feed once a week from willing donors in the city. The blood house I mentioned. They cater to vampires who prefer consent. It's clinical, regulated, nothing like the hunts of old." He paused, helping her over a stream. "Though some vampires prefer the hunt. Dmitri, for instance. He takes willing donors, but his definition of willing is flexible. Meaning he uses influence. Vampire charisma, we call it. A form of hypnosis. Makes humans compliant, eager even. Technically consent, but," he shrugged, "I don't use it. Seems too close to force." Alara filed that information away. Another piece of the puzzle that was vampire existence. "And the transformation itself? You said 3 exchanges over 3 nights. First exchange. I give you my blood. You'll feel stronger, heal faster, senses heighten, like being drunk on life itself. Second exchange, you give me yours. The bond forms. You'll feel my emotions, sense my location. It's intimate, invasive. Some humans flee during this phase. And the third?" He stopped walking. They'd reached a ridge overlooking a valley where the city sprawled. Gas lamps winking out as dawn approached. Modern buildings mixed with ancient stone. "The third exchange is death. I drain you completely, then feed you enough of my blood to restart your system as something new. The heart stops. Everything human dies. Then the hunger wakes, and you have a choice. Feed or die permanently." "Have you ever turned someone?" "No," the word was hard. "I couldn't, not after my own turning. The thought of taking someone's mortality, their humanity." He shook his head. "Irina begged me toward the end. She was dying of fever, asking me to save her. I refused. Let her die human. I've regretted it and thanked myself for it every day since." Ilara touched his arm. "If I ask, will you refuse me?" He turned to face her fully, and in the strengthening light, she saw every line of pain on his face. "I don't know. That terrifies me, because I want you to stay more than I want to protect your humanity. That makes me a monster in truth, or it makes you honest. She stepped closer, into the space that had become theirs. Everyone wants things. You're brave enough to admit it. There's nothing brave about selfishness. There's nothing selfish about wanting connection. She cupped his face, feeling the marble coolness of his skin. You've been alone for 200 years. You're allowed to want someone to stay. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. The one she'd cut, now bandaged with strips from his shirt. You make it sound simple, isn't it? You want me to stay. I want to stay. Everything else is just negotiating terms. His laugh was soft, surprised. You'd negotiate eternity like a business contract? Why not? It's my eternity too. She pulled him down the ridge toward the city. Come on, show me this sanctuary of yours. Teach me how to exist in your world. We have, she calculated, 2 days before the council's deadline. That's enough time to learn the basics, complete my offering, and plan our next move. Hour. He said it like testing new language. I've been using I for so long I'd forgotten hour. They reached the city as the sun crested the horizon. Constantine winced, pulling a hood over his face, and led her through waking streets to a building that looked abandoned from outside, but sang with life within. The Blood House. Inside, it was elegant. Velvet furniture, low lighting, soft music. Humans reclined in various states of languid satisfaction, while vampires fed with clinical courtesy. No violence, no force. Just transaction and mutual benefit. They pay well? Alara asked, watching a vampire feed delicately from a young man's wrist. Very. And they screen donors for health. Consent, coercion. Constantine nodded to a stern-looking woman at a desk. Human. Surprisingly, Madame Orlova runs the tightest operation in the territory. If she suspects a vampire of using influence or force, they're banned permanently. Constantine. Orlova's voice was warm. It's been weeks. And you've brought a companion. The marked one, unless I'm mistaken. Word travels fast. Dimitri's been searching the city for her. Offering rewards. She studied Alara with sharp eyes. You're braver than you look, girl. Most humans run from what you're walking toward. I'm tired of running. Alara met her gaze steadily. He says you help vampires who prefer consent. Does that extend to transformation? Blunt, I like that. Orlova's smile was approving. Yes. If you're considering the change, I can provide resources. Literature, counseling, trial exchanges to see how your body reacts. Too many vampires turn humans impulsively, and the new vampire can't handle it. Suicide rates are high among those turned without preparation. Suicide? Alara looked at Constantine. Daylight, he said quietly. The first time you see the sun and it burns, really burns, some newly turned can't reconcile what they've become. They walk into dawn and end it. The casual horror of it struck her. How do you bear it? Never seeing the sun again? You find other lights. His eyes found hers. Or you remember the sun wasn't that warm anyway. They spent the day in Orlova's sanctuary, and Constantine taught her vampire society's architecture. The 5 great houses, each controlling territory. The council that mediated disputes, the rogues who rejected all structure, the ancient laws written in blood oaths. He taught her to sense vampires by their stillness, by the absence of warmth. He taught her the formal greetings that might save her life in court. He taught her that vampires could be killed, fire, complete blood loss, decapitation, but were remarkably hard to end otherwise. And the sun, she asked as afternoon faded. Why does it burn you? We're creatures of blood now. The sun drives blood into motion, makes it burn hotter. Our blood is still cold. The clash between still blood and solar heat creates pain. He smiled wryly. Though some old ones can tolerate dawn. Tolerance builds over centuries. Will I be able to walk in daylight? Eventually. Maybe. If you're strong enough, disciplined enough. He reached across the table where they sat. Books spread around them. But Alara, it might be decades of burning before that tolerance develops. Are you prepared to lose the sun for decades? She thought of her village, the dawn gatherings she'd attended out of obligation, not joy. The sun rising over fields she'd worked without passion. I think I've been living in shadow for a long time. At least with you, the darkness has company. His hand tightened on hers. You say things that make it hard to remember why I should talk you out of this. Then stop trying. She stood, pulling him up. I'm not afraid of you, Constantine. Not your hunger, not your darkness, not your past. Show me what you are fully. I want to see the monster before I choose to become one. Something flickered in his eyes. Vulnerability and desperate hope tangled together. Are you certain? More certain than anything in my life. She stepped close enough to feel the coolness radiating from him. Show me. And he did. His eyes bled to full amber, pupils dilating. His lips parted, and she saw his fangs extend, sharp, elegant, deadly. He moved with inhuman speed, pinning her gently against the wall, and she felt the predator in him fully present for the first time. This, he whispered against her throat, is what I am. This hunger, this need, this thing that could drain you dry and feel nothing but satisfaction. Her pulse hammered against his lips. But you won't. No. He pulled back, eyes closing, fangs retracting with visible effort. Because I choose not to. Every day, every moment. That's all any of us are. Choices made over and over despite our nature. She pulled him down, kissed him fiercely. Then I choose you. Monster and man, all of it. Even if it cost your humanity, especially then. She smiled against his lips. Because humanity gave me nothing but altars to kneel on. Let me be a monster who stands. Chapter 8. Blood and Covenant. Night fell over the city, and with it came the weight of decision. They sat in a private room Orlova had provided, candle-lit, intimate, with ritual implements laid out on a table like surgical tools. A silver knife, ceremonial and ancient. A chalice, black glass. Sealing wax, red as blood. The tools of transformation or offering, depending on what Ilara chose. The first exchange can happen tonight, Constantine said, his voice careful, controlled. If you're certain. But once we begin, the bond will form. You'll feel everything I feel. There's no privacy in it. I don't want privacy from you. Ilara examined the knife, its edge catching candlelight. How does it work exactly? I open a vein, wrist usually. You drink until you feel the change taking hold. Strength. Heightened senses, the beginning of the bond. He hesitated. It's intimate. Some compare it to sex. The vulnerability of it. And you've never done this? In 200 years? Never. He met her eyes. I've fed from humans who consented. But I've never shared my blood. That's transformation territory, and I've avoided it like poison. Until now. Until you. He reached for her hand. Ilara, I need you to understand. If we complete all 3 exchanges, you'll be vulnerable during the transition. You'll die fully. Then wake with the hunger. If you can't bring yourself to feed, you'll die permanently. Are you prepared to kill for your first meal? The question hung heavy. Would I have to kill? No, you'd feed until satisfied, but most new vampires lack control. They drain their first meal completely, accidentally. His face was grave. It's why I've always fed from the bloodhouse. Clean donors who know the risks. You'd have the same option, but the hunger is strongest during the first week. You might not be able to stop yourself. Ilara processed this. So I'd become a killer, possibly. Unless your control is exceptional. Or unless... He trailed off. Unless what? Unless you fed from me. The words came out rough. A vampire can sustain another vampire temporarily. It's rare, usually reserved for emergencies. But if you fed from me during your first hunger, you wouldn't need human blood immediately. It would give you time to learn control. Would that hurt you? His smile was soft. Yes, but I'd heal. And I'd rather be hurt than watch you accidentally kill someone and hate yourself for it. The generosity of it struck her silent. Here was a creature who'd been turned violently, who'd killed in his first hunger, offering to bear pain so she wouldn't carry the same guilt. You really meant it, she said quietly. When you said you'd spent 17 years trying to give me choice, I mean everything with you. He stood, pacing the small room. But Ilara, you don't have to transform. We could complete your offering instead. You give your blood freely, speak words of release, and I'm freed from the debt. You stay human, live your mortal life. I'd protect you from Dimitri, from the council. You could have everything you deserve. Except you. He stopped. What? If I stay human, I age. Die in 50, 60 years if I'm lucky. You continue for centuries. That's not everything, Constantine. That's scraps. She stood, closing the distance between them. I don't want 50 years. I want forever, with you. That's the choice I'm making. You'd give up humanity for me? I'd give up humanity for myself. She placed her hand over his silent heart. The girl who was offered up died in that village square 17 years ago. What walked away was something else, something waiting to become what she was meant to be. Maybe I've always been meant for this, for darkness and forever. Maybe you marked me because you recognized it. His hand covered hers. Or maybe I cursed you because I'm a selfish creature who wanted one thing in his long existence to be purely chosen. Then let me choose. She reached for the knife, offering it to him. First exchange. Tonight. Not because I'm running, not because I'm forced. Because I want to become what you are. Constantine took the knife with shaking hands, the first time she'd seen him truly frightened. If we do this, I'll be bound to you. Not by blood oath, but by something deeper. I'll feel when you're hurt. Know where you are. Sense your emotions. And you'll feel mine. 200 years of loneliness, regret, hunger. Are you ready for that weight? Are you ready for mine? She smiled. 17 years of being defined by one moment. Of being marked and set apart. Of watching everyone else live while I waited for something I couldn't name. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was this. He cupped her face, searching her expression for doubt. Finding none, he made his decision. Sit. He guided her to a chair, then knelt before her, the ancient vampire, kneeling like a supplicant. I'll make the cut. You drink until you feel warmth spreading through your chest. That's when you stop. Too much too fast can overwhelm your system. I trust you. Those 3 words unmade him. She saw it in the way his eyes closed, the way his breath caught unnecessarily. You shouldn't. But I'm grateful you do. He drew the knife across his wrist in one smooth motion. Black blood welled, and the scent of it hit her. Copper and cold earth and something indefinably other. He raised his wrist to her lips. Drink, he whispered, and let me feel you finally choose. Alara hesitated only a moment, then pressed her mouth to his wrist and drank. The blood was nothing like she expected. Cold, yes, but alive somehow. Electric, singing through her veins like lightning. Power flooded her system, and she felt it immediately. Strength building in her muscles. Her vision sharpening until she could see individual dust motes in the candlelight. And beneath it all, a connection forming like a bridge between their minds. She felt his emotions crash into her. Fear, hope, desperate longing, bone-deep loneliness cracking open to let something else in. Love. He loved her. Had maybe loved her since the night he'd marked her. Loved the woman he'd hoped she'd become. And she loved him back. It was suddenly brilliantly clear. This creature who'd given her choice when everyone else offered only cages. Warmth bloomed in her chest, and she pulled away, gasping. Constantine's wrist healed instantly, and he caught her as strength and sensation overwhelmed her system. I feel you, she whispered. Everything. Your fear, your hope, and I feel yours. His voice was raw. You're not afraid. You're exhilarated. Because I'm finally choosing my own life. She laughed, the sound bright and strange. How long until the second exchange? Tomorrow night. You need to process this first. He stood, pulling her up, and she realized she moved differently now. Lighter, stronger. How do you feel? Powerful. She looked at her hands, flexing fingers that could probably break stone now. Is this how you feel all the time? Diluted version. When the transformation completes, it's stronger. He pulled her close, and she heard it now. The absence of heartbeat in his chest, the stillness that marked him as other. You're halfway to becoming what I am. Tomorrow the bond solidifies. The day after. He trailed off. The day after I die and wake as a vampire. She finished. 2 days until I stop being human. Are you having second thoughts? Constantly, but he smiled. But I'm also feeling something I haven't felt in 2 centuries. What? Hope that I won't be alone anymore. He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. Sleep tonight. Tomorrow everything changes. But Alara didn't sleep. She stood at the window, watching the city lights, feeling Constantine's presence in the back of her mind, a warm anchor that promised she'd never be lost again. She touched her throat, where the crescent scar gleamed silver, the mark of an offering interrupted. Soon to be the mark of a choice completed. Tomorrow she'd give her blood. The day after, her life. And in exchange, she'd take eternity and the vampire who'd waited 17 years for her to be ready to claim it. Fair trade, she thought, and smiled into the darkness. Chapter 9. The Blood Price. They came at dawn, House Volkov in full force. Alara woke to the sound of splintering wood, to Constantine's fear flooding the bond they'd forged. He was already moving, pulling her from bed, his eyes wild with something between fury and terror. They've breached Orlova's sanctuary. His voice was clipped, controlled. Dimitri's using council authority. He's claiming you're a threat to territorial stability. Through the window she saw them. 20 vampires in black coats, surrounding the building like a military operation. And at their center, Dimitri himself, holding a document sealed with wax, an official council decree. "We can fight," she said, but Constantine shook his head. "Not 20. Not in daylight when I'm weak." He gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me. They want you to complete your offering or die. If you complete it right now, bind me to your village's protection, I can invoke sanctuary rights and negotiate from a position of power. It's the only way to save both of us. That would enslave you." The bond pulsed with his resignation, his willingness to accept chains if it meant she survived. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't." He pulled her toward the door. "The ritual is simple. You offer your blood, speak the words of covenant, and I'm bound. Better slavery than watching them kill you." But Alara's mind was racing, fueled by the vampire blood singing in her system. She thought of what Orlova had explained yesterday, the intricacies of blood oaths, the ways vampire law could be twisted for those who understood it. "What if I complete my offering?" she said slowly. "But not to bind you. That won't satisfy the council. What if I offered my blood and used it to claim protection for myself?" "Not from you, from House Volkov." She met his eyes. "I'm not fully human anymore. I've taken your blood. That makes me—" "What exactly in vampire law?" Understanding dawned on his face. "Liminal. Between states. Neither human nor vampire, but carrying vampire essence. You'd have a claim to petition the council directly for protection. Then that's what I do. I complete my offering not as a human demanding vampire servitude, but as a liminal being claiming my right to choose my own allegiance. I choose you as protector, freely, as an equal. Not master and servant. Partners." The door exploded inward. Dimitri strode through, flanked by his vampires, and behind them came Council Magistrate Yevgenia, looking grimly official. "Ilara of No House Konstantin Volkov, you're summoned to answer for territorial disruption." "We'll come peacefully," Constantine started, but Alara stepped forward. "I claim right of offering." Her voice rang clear, strong. "As is my right under the old laws," Dimitri laughed. "You have no rights, girl. You're human. She's liminal," Yevgenia interrupted, studying Alara with sharp interest. "She's undergone the first exchange. That grants her legal standing to petition the council directly." She turned to Dimitri. "The law is clear. If she wishes to complete her offering under council supervision, we're bound to witness it." "This is absurd. This is law." Yevgenia's voice cut like a blade. "Unless you wish to violate the very legal structures you invoked to justify this raid." Dimitri's face went blank with fury, but he stepped back. "Fine. Let her make her toothless offering. It changes nothing. She'll still be prey, and Constantine will still be bound by partial debt. We'll see." Yevgenia produced a ceremonial knife from her robes. "Alara, kneel before the council's witness. Constantine, stand as recipient. We'll conduct this by ancient rite." They moved to the center of the room. Constantine's fear pulsed through their bond, but Alara felt only clarity. She'd been offered up once and refused. Now she'd offer herself again, but on her own terms. She took the knife from Yevgenia and drew it across her palm without hesitation. Red blood welled, brighter than it should be, tainted with Constantine's black essence. creating something between human and vampire. I, Ilara of No House, marked and liminal, offer my blood freely. She let it drip into the black glass chalice Yevgenia held. Not in servitude, but in partnership. Not to bind, but to choose. I claim Constantine as my protector, my companion, my equal. I offer my blood and ask for his in return, a bond of mutual sacrifice, not forced covenant. The room went silent. That's not the traditional formula, Dmitri hissed. The traditional formula was written for humans demanding vampire service, Yevgenia said slowly. She's rewriting it as a liminal claiming partnership. Technically permissible, if unprecedented. She turned to Constantine. Do you accept her offering, not as master but as equal? Will you share your blood, your protection, your life with her freely, without compulsion? Constantine's eyes were gold fire. I accept. Freely, eternally. He took the knife and cut his own wrist, letting black blood mix with her red in the chalice. When Yevgenia swirled it, the blend turned deep crimson, the color of sunset, of roses, of something entirely new. Then let it be witnessed. The magistrate's voice carried power. The debt is paid. The offering is complete. No binding, no servitude. A blood partnership, recognized under ancient law. The chalice shattered. Ilara felt it, the snap of connection, deeper than the bond they'd already forged. She felt Constantine's shock, his joy, his desperate relief. And she felt something else, power flooding her veins, the combined force of her marked blood and his ancient essence creating something that made every vampire in the room step back. Impossible, Dmitri whispered. She's glowing. Ilara looked down. Her skin did glow, faint silver light, the color of her scar, radiating from within. The mark on her throat blazed like a brand. Fascinating. Yevgenia circled her slowly. The combination of marked blood and exchange has created something new. She's neither human nor vampire, but a third state, a blood beacon. I've only read of such things in myths. What does that mean? Constantine moved to Ilara's side, and when he took her glowing hand, the light intensified. It means, the magistrate said carefully, that she cannot be turned. The mark and the exchange have stabilized in perfect balance. She's immortal, but not vampire. She'll never hunger, never burn in sunlight. She's simply other. The implications crashed through Ilara. She'd wanted transformation to stay with Constantine forever. Instead, she'd become something else entirely. A creature outside all categories, bound to him by choice, but not by nature. Can she be killed? Dimitri's voice was cold calculation. Theoretically. But she's protected by the blood partnership. To kill her would be to declare blood war on Constantine, which would require council approval for House Volkov to pursue. Yevgenia's smile was thin. And I don't believe the council will approve war over one liminal girl, no matter how unprecedented. Dimitri's face twisted with rage. This isn't over. Yes, Constantine said quietly, pulling Ilara close. It is. She's made her choice. I've made mine. The debt is paid, the offering complete. You have no further claim under vampire law or human tradition. For a moment, violence hung in the air. Then Yevgenia spoke. Dmitri, stand down, or face council sanctions for harassment of a blood-partnered pair. Slowly, with murder in his eyes, Dmitri retreated. His vampires followed, leaving only Yevgenia, Constantine, and Ilara in the destroyed room. You, the magistrate said to Ilara, have just rewritten 3,000 years of vampire-human relations. Congratulations. You'll either be celebrated or assassinated. Possibly both. As long as I'm not offered up again, Ilara said, I'll take my chances. Yevgenia's laugh was surprised and genuine. I think you'll do more than survive, child. I think you'll thrive. She nodded to them both, then dissolved into mist. Silence fell. Constantine turned Ilara to face him, his hands shaking. You brilliant, terrifying creature. You just invented a new way to exist. We invented it. She pulled him close, feeling their connection sing. Together, like everything else, he kissed her then, deep and desperate, and she tasted the relief, the joy, the absolute terror of having something he couldn't bear to lose. When they finally broke apart, dawn was breaking through the windows. Sunlight touched Alara's glowing skin, and she didn't burn. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh." Constantine stared as she stepped into the light, as it illuminated her silver radiance, as she stood in dawn for the first time as something more than human. "I can walk in the sun," she said, wonder flooding her voice. "I can walk in the sun and exist in the dark. I can be with you in both worlds." His expression crumbled into something too vast for words. 200 years of burning, of hiding from dawn, and now she stood before him, impossible and radiant. Proof that maybe there were more ways to exist than he'd imagined. "Come here," she said gently, extending her glowing hand into shadow where he stood. "Let me be your light," and he came. Chapter 10, Dawn and Forever. 3 months later, Alara returned to her village. She walked through the square where she'd knelt as a 7-year-old, offering her throat to the darkness, and found it empty. Most villagers had fled after House Volkov's rogues attacked in retaliation for Retry H continued Dimitri's humiliation. The few who remained watched from windows, afraid of the girl who'd come back glowing like moonlight, accompanied by a vampire who moved like death itself. "They fear you," Constantine observed, his hand finding hers. Good. Alara stopped at the exact spot where she'd offered herself 17 years ago. The stone still bore faint traces of old blood. Hers, from where she'd knelt and cut her palm in childish determination to save people who'd been willing to sacrifice her. Fear means they won't try it again. Won't offer up another child thinking monsters will simply take what's given. The head elder emerged from his house. Older now, bent with guilt or age or both. "Alara, we thought you were dead." "I was." She smiled, and in the daylight her skin cast prisms like stained glass. "The girl you offered died the moment he marked her instead of claiming her. What came back is something you have no power over. We only wanted protection. You wanted servitude." Constantine's voice was soft, lethal. "You wanted a vampire lord bound to your will. Instead, you created something that makes all of us nervous. The council has recognized her as a blood beacon, a creature outside normal law. She could declare this territory independent if she wished. Form her own house." The elder paled. "You wouldn't." Alara considered it. She'd spent the past 3 months learning what she was, what she could do. Her blood mixed with Constantine's in perfect balance, gave her abilities neither human nor vampire possessed. She could walk in sunlight, heal rapidly, sense vampires and humans alike, and most importantly, her presence stabilized newly turned vampires, calming the first hunger that drove so many to accidental murder. Orlova had offered her a position at the Bloodhouse, mediating between species. The council wanted her as a neutral party for territorial disputes. Even House Volkov, through gritted teeth, had sent overtures suggesting alliance over enmity. She'd refused them all. "I won't declare territory here," she told the elder. "This place has nothing I want. But I will do this. I'll establish a sanctuary in the manor ruins, a place where vampires who don't want to hunt can find willing donors, where humans fleeing violence can find protection, where the lines between monster and man can blur into something new. You'd do that? After what we did to you? Not for you." She looked at Constantine, who watched her with 2 centuries of loneliness finally eased from his expression. "For everyone who'll be offered up after me. So they have somewhere to run that isn't into more cages." They left the village as the sun reached its apex. Alara walked through the light that had once been forbidden to her vampire partner, her hand in his, their bond singing with shared purpose. At the valley's edge, where the manor's bones still jutted from scorched earth, they stopped. "It'll take years to rebuild," Constantine said, but his eyes held hope. "We have years." Alara turned to him, pulling him close. "We have forever, actually. Question is, what do we build? Something better than what came before." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Something neither fully vampire nor human, like you. Like us. A house for the in-between," she murmured. "For the refused and the choosing. For everyone who doesn't fit in the boxes they're given. House Alara?" She laughed. "House Dawn, because we exist in the liminal hours, between dark and light, between monster and human, between what we were and what we're becoming. House Dawn. He tested the name. I like it, though it's ironic for a vampire. That's the point. She pulled him toward the ruins, already envisioning what they'd create. Where the irony made flesh, the sacrifice that refused to be sacrificed, the vampire who wouldn't claim, the blood partnership that broke 3,000 years of precedent. Why not a house that stands in sunlight? They spent that day planning. Her in the light, him in the shadows, meeting in the spaces between. They'd need builders, both human and vampire. They'd need Orlova's connections, Yevgenia's political backing. They'd need to convince the council that a neutral house could stabilize the territories better than endless power struggles. It would be difficult, dangerous, possibly impossible. Ilara had never been more certain of anything. As sunset approached, Constantine pulled her to the highest point of the ruins, a half-collapsed tower that overlooked the valley. The sky bled crimson and gold, the exact color their mixed blood had become in the chalice. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing me. For not running when you should have. For being brave enough to rewrite rules that have stood for millennia." He turned her to face him, and in the dying light, his eyes were pure amber. "For making forever feel like a gift instead of a curse." "You gave me forever first," she reminded him. "That mark 17 years ago. You gave me time to become strong enough to choose it." "We gave each other everything." He kissed her as the sun touched the horizon. That's what partnership means. They stood there as day became night, as her glow intensified and his strength returned, and watched the stars emerge over the valley that would become their territory. Not through conquest or blood oath, but through choice and building and slow, patient work. Somewhere in the distance, a village bell tolled. Somewhere, a newly turned vampire would wake screaming with first hunger. Somewhere, a child might be kneeling in a town square, offering blood to save people who should be protecting them. But here, in the ruins of an old life, something new was beginning. Ilara touched her throat, where the crescent scar gleamed silver, the mark of an offering interrupted, completed, transformed. The mark that had saved her by refusing to claim her. The mark that had become a bond instead of a brand. "Ready to build our impossible house?" Constantine asked, pulling her close as the first stars appeared. She smiled into the darkness that no longer frightened her, feeling his presence through the bond they'd forged from blood and choice, and 17 years of patience. "I've been ready since I was 7 years old, and you taught me that monsters could choose mercy." "Then let's begin." And they did. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Dai Manor rose from the valley like a promise kept. Part Gothic fortress, part sunlit sanctuary, all defiant impossibility. House Dawn, they called it, the place where light and dark met without fighting. Ilara stood in the great hall they'd rebuilt, watching the evening crowd arrive. Vampires seeking willing donors, humans seeking protection from rogue attacks, newly turned vampires desperate for guidance through first hunger, all of them drawn to the blood beacon who walked in both worlds. Constantine emerged from the shadows, as he always did, and pulled her close. 5 years and he still held her like she might vanish. 5 years and she still glowed when he touched her, their bond visible for anyone to see. 37 residents this month, he murmured against her hair. Yevgenia says we're the fastest growing house in the territory. Dmitri is furious. Good, Ilara smiled. Let him be furious. We're proving that there's another way. That not every exchange has to be about power and servitude. Through the tall windows, sunset painted the sky the color of their mixed blood, crimson shot with silver. Their color. The color of sacrifice transformed into choice. A young vampire approached, newly turned and shaking with hunger. Ilara recognized the fear in his eyes, the terror of what he'd become, the certainty that he'd kill his first meal. "Come," she said gently, extending her glowing hand. "I'll teach you control. You don't have to be what they tell you monsters are." As she led him away to the feeding rooms where Orlova's trained donors waited, Constantine watched with an expression that still, after 5 years, held wonder. His blood beacon, his partner, his proof that 2 centuries of loneliness could end not with possession, but with choice. Outside, the last light died, and stars emerged over House Dawn. The girl who'd been offered had built herself a kingdom. Not of subjects, but of the choosing. Not of cages, but of open doors. And in the center of it all, a vampire who'd learned mercy and a woman who'd refused to be sacrificed stood together, blazing in the darkness like a promise that some offerings, when refused, become something far more powerful than servitude. They become revolution.